What's going on, everybody? It's the Reformation Keegan, and I'm back here with another video analysis. So, we're going to be analyzing a comic that I knew I was going to love, but I didn't know I was going to love it as much as I did. We're talking about J.M. DeMatteis' Martian Manhunter. So, this came out in 1988, and it's a four-issue miniseries. And this is really disclosing the origin story of John Jones. So, as many of you know, I'm a massive fan of the Martian Manhunter. He's one of my favorite characters in all of comics. And full disclosure, I believe he's the most underrated character in the history of comics, most likely because he's a character that exudes a lot of emotion. And this emotion is something that is a paradox to human behavior because John Jones is not a human, he's a Martian. And very similar to Superman, he acts more human than the traditional human being does, because he has this emotion and this ability to convey those emotions in a way that relates not just to a reader, but relates to people within his own world too. So I found DeMatteis' characterization of the Martian Manhunter incredible. This was one of my favorite arcs that I've ever read. And I know that's saying a lot because I've read a lot of comics, but if you ever read anything of the Martian Manhunter, I would start with this miniseries because this will give you all the stuff that you need to know about the character. So I'm going to start off a little bit by not summarizing, but I'm going to analyze while summarizing at the same time. So basically in issue 1, you get this genesis of how John Jones becomes John Jones, and we can see how this affects him. So that's basically the premise of issue 1. But for issue 2, he absorbs a spore, which is a sentient cell that is spreading almost a plague of madness across Earth. So the spore is a symbol of mass hysteria, and this is something that affects John Jones. The Martian Manhunter, he needs help, and he needs help from the JLA, who we know would eventually help him, but also he becomes the moral consciousness of the JLA, and he becomes, I don't want to say the leader, but he becomes the moral compass and the moral consciousness of the JLA. However, he doesn't want to endanger the JLA. So this is kind of very similar to Clark Kent, where both of these characters have a lot of power, but they don't want to endanger human beings who, for lack of a better term, are a lot more fragile physically. And this acts as a form of self-guilt. And this is something that John Jones has to deal with. Self-guilt, post-traumatic stress disorder, things in that nature. He tells Batman the same thing in the first issue, which is pretty apparent. And this is a story of personal bereavement. He's afraid to give anyone the spore, and he thinks it may just be better to die alone atop the mountain that he's on, literally. And Hronmir is on the prowl for John as well. This is the god of fire and death for Mars. And John basically forms this relationship with Dr. Erdl at the end of this issue. And Dr. Erdl is a character that is very, very pivotal in this story. So I'll get to him soon. But the Martian Manhunter's grandmother in issue 3 tells him the tales of the god Hronmir, which still haunt him. So this is generational folklore. And this folklore is disguised as trauma, because a lot of times in cultures you have folklore of demons and gods, dragons, and larger than life entities that can either help or harm that civilization and the culture that individual lives in. But one of the quotes that really got me, especially in the third issue, is this: "But it's a freedom that terrifies me. I was so secure in my cocoon of lies." Very poetic diction here by DeMatteis, and just very, very beautifully written. But this shows a sense of denial, and also when somebody is under, not the spell, but under the control of somebody else or some other belief, the thought of freedom is something that will haunt people because they don't know what to do with that freedom. They don't trust themselves, but they also sometimes have imposter syndrome where they don't believe that they deserve freedom, or they have just never really experienced what full freedom is. And these are all things that John Jones struggles with. And it's a metaphor for emotional instability. So Dr. Ertl tries to make John, in addition, look more like a human being. And this actually relates to the quote because John has to come out of this proverbial cocoon that he's in, both physically and ideologically. And he has to come out of this cocoon in order to survive on Earth and to integrate himself and assimilate himself into the culture. So John has the ability to look like a human and look more human while still maintaining some of his Martian traits. And this is what Dr. Ertl helps him with. One of the things I like about the Dr. Ertl character is you never know his true intentions until later. And these true intentions can look villainous, but maybe they're not. I'm not going to spoil it in full. But the dynamic between him and John is very, very good. But Ertl is informed by John that John must revisit his past, no matter how painful. So John puts himself through basically nightly trials in his own mind to revisit this past and go through that pain in order to secure a better future. So if we're looking at this from a perspective of realism, somebody who has a traumatic past sometimes needs to relive it in a way where they can come to terms with it and move on. And that's what John's trying to do here. So this is a very relatable human behavior where we go through very stressful or very traumatic things, and we want to go through it in another form again so we can move on, but also to teach ourselves that this is not an event that is going to define what we do going forward. And that's what John, again, is trying to do. So John goes back to Mars in a more natural state. And he says that basically violence was an aberration among his race and not a state of natural existence. So for human beings, we are usually very violent individuals when we have to be. But the Martians are not. So this is a juxtaposition between human and Martians that I think is really, really well written by DeMatteis. Because Martians, according to John, are a race of poets, mystics, and seers and dreamers. And John claims that Saul Ertl, aka Dr. Ertl, didn't put the fear of fire in his rebuilding process. But instead, the fear of fire is within John as a state of permanence. And this is, again, the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder. Even with all of the scientific elements that Ertl has to his disposal, this fear of fire is so innate within Martians and within John Jones specifically that it doesn't evaporate. And one of the reasons this happens is because he had to watch his wife get burned in the fires of purification. And each time he revisits this moment, he dies a little more inside and dies a little more with her, and that's what he claims. So this is also a big theme of love, and this is undying, burning love, for lack of a better phrase. So in this issue, we see how Batman 2, in relation as a human being, doesn't fully understand telepathic communication. And that's something that I think human beings are just kind of oblivious to. For as smart as Bruce is, it's something that he can't understand, and you can't beat what you don't understand. So this happens too when Saul Ertl tells him that John will call him when he wants to come back to Earth after his pilgrimage, for lack of a better term. So really, this is like a pilgrimage in a lot of ways, except John's not walking, he's mentally reliving, but it is a form of emotional mental pilgrimage. And Ertl tells Batman, like I said earlier, that John will come back when he needs to or when he wants. And for once, Batman is not the most intelligent person in the room, but his detective like suspicions lead him to question Ertl's validity. So we still get Batman being the detective that he is, but he doesn't have the answers to every question. And he doesn't have the resources to get these answers. He just has to wait and see. And we can see how the characterization of Batman, even in this story, evolves. So there's a lot of characterizations going on here. There's a lot of mythology, Martian mythology. There's a lot of themes of post-traumatic stress disorder, themes of despondency, themes of familial relations being burned, literally and metaphorically. And the writing in this is just simply incredible. Like I mentioned, one of the quotes earlier, DeMatteis is perfect at writing poetic language. And this story also contributes to my argument that the Martian Manhunter is the most underrated character in all of comics. And I wish that there would be more bigger arcs with him. And I would love to see a rogues gallery developed for the Martian Manhunter one day. I'm going to keep reading more, but this is a character that I would definitely, as a creator, would love to sink my teeth into. Because there's so much more to tell, so much more creations you can make that are even derived from this story, which was written in 1988. So 30 plus years of history you can work with here. And for me, as a creative writing major, an English literature major, I would love to work on this character selfishly down the road. I don't know if that opportunity will ever happen, but this is a character that I absolutely, absolutely adore because the character is relatable. And even though, like I said, John doesn't look like a human being, he can, obviously, with his abilities in shapeshifting, but he has the emotional capacity of a human being. If you could think of one of the most pure human beings in your life, in your family, or even for, going out on a limb here, but for one of your best friends, there there are pure people out there, and John is what a human being should be. Also, don't forget either to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I love doing these analyses. I'm going to try to do more soon. After I'm done classes, I'm going to be doing a lot more of these. And I cannot wait to dip my pen into the comic world. So stay tuned for that because I am currently writing some stuff right now that hopefully one day I can get published. And in the meantime, please subscribe because we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and 3,000 watch hours. If I can get to that, I can put out more and better content for you going forward. In the meantime, keep reforming, and I will see you soon.